Welcome everyone to the Notes of Grace YouTube channel with the host Patrick Tufts.
We will have a debate with 4 amazing people. One is the OG Pokémon singer Jason Paige. The main topic and question will be on the existence of God, and if the human's God and the universe are best explained through a biblical worldview or the Morphic Resonance theory. Welcome! And let's get started!
Hello everyone, and welcome to Notes of Grace YouTube channel. This is an amazing opportunity we're going to have doing a debate, and I'm so excited because we're looking to save the lost and seek for the truth. And there's so many different truths now with postmodernism and all these different things saying that that's your truth but not the truth. So I'm just really excited to be here today. We are having a debate style format on the existence and nature of God. I'm joined by some incredible people. One is a pastor, one is just a friend of mine, and another one is the OG Pokemon singer. The way this will work is each person debating will have a certain amount of time I will give them before each question or category. The main topic in question will be on the existence of God and if the humans, God, and the universe are best explained through a biblical worldview or through the Morphic Resonance theory by Rubric Sheldrick. Before we get into this topic at hand, let's go over some of the rules. Please, whatever you do, no swearing. That's a big one. And this will last around 1 hour, with a total of probably about 60 minutes. This debate will have to remain PG, so please again, no swearing. There will be multiple categories, 3 main categories, and what we are going to do is also have a mini exchange after each category, which is a short, free-roaming kind of interaction where you guys can talk with each other and say anything you want and ask each other any questions we want. So we are going to be joined by 4 very incredible and smart people that I'm very excited to introduce. We're going to have 2 minutes to introduce the first person. You can talk about things such as like your accomplishments, your educational background, your family, maybe some of your religious backgrounds. And we're going to start with Jason Paige. So feel free to introduce yourself now, Jason, as the timer starts.
Good morning. Jason Paige here. Hi, I am known as the voice of a generation, the singer of the OG Pokemon theme song. And I am very excited to be here. Thank you, Patrick, for inviting us with this incredibly profound and important question that really needs to have some more investigation and more conversations about it. So I'm glad you brought us here. Should I continue until my timer goes?
Yeah, you got 2 minutes to talk about your family. Talk about anything you want.
I'm an only child. I believe that I have been around in physical form since the creation of the egg, which was in my grandmother's belly as my grandmother was pregnant with my mother. In 1946 was when the egg part of me was created, when my physical reality came to be somehow cosmically in around the 13th week of her pregnancy. So, no doubt, the effects physically on me from her world, her experience started then. And I believe that I am 78 years old, in physical form. And that cosmic experience, which then was fertilized by my father's sperm in 1969, created some sort of light, some sort of measurable light force that you could see when the egg and the sperm came together in this way. The sperm was only about 7 hours old, but I am a result of that cosmic spark, and I'm here to explore what that spark was, how it happened, and what we can do about increasing the energy flow outward from our individual sparks.
Okay, your time is up now. Now we're going to have Jono, and you already know the rules, Jono, so now this stage is yours. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jono, or Jonathan Woodall. I'm a tech founder in the AI space. I'm the founder of PageSpace.ai, and we try to basically, instead of replacing human intelligence, augment it and allow people to organize their thoughts instead of just writing a bunch of slop. But before that, I was doing a lot of other things like music and coaching debate, and debate is something that I really value a lot, just that we can have these open dialogues, be able to discuss things in an agreeable manner, and be able to try to actually seek truth through it actually having ideas compete against each other. And so it's awesome to be here. It's fun to be able to discuss all these things. I have a background of being a Christian, and I believe that both the science that even the secular world has established or tends to agree more on, that even they are just grasping at the foundations of what we know Scripture already says and has described since the very beginning. And so that's ultimately the reason why I love debate so much, why I love knowledge, why I love being able to discuss things, because I believe that when ideas do come together and compete, that truth does rise to the top. And so that's why I'm happy to be here and happy to discuss these things.
Okay, you don't want to use your whole time? That's fine, that's fine. The next person we're going to have is Dion Bourget. The stage is yours, Dion.
Morning, gentlemen. Want to know how I am excited to be here. I'm 5 years old. I'm probably the oldest one here. I'm a pastor of a small church in Irving. I was called to preach when I was 16 years old, so I've been a pastor, an evangelist, a missionist. I've worked in the mission fields out in the western United States, over in the tribal areas for the Indians. I've been a pastor at this particular church here twice, off and on, since 1994. The church is established in 92. I've went to college. I've had 3 kids. I've been married to the same woman for 45 years. I believe that life starts at conception. And my biggest thing is that I think that we can work science and nature together. I mean, there's not going to be empirical truths in science, then that's what they look for. But I believe that there are truths to be found on both arguments. And I believe in debating and having an open and honest debate, and treating everybody with respect, and letting their thoughts and their ideas be known and heard. And then, we go from there. And that's all I got to say, Patrick.
Sounds awesome. So now the last person and final person we're going to introduce is a guy by the name of Cody. Go ahead, Cody.
Woo! Hi, guys. I'm Cody McLeod. It's so nice to get to talk to you guys. It's such an honor. I'm just amazed, you guys are just a list of just heavy hitters and super intelligent people, and I'm just Cody, and I love Jesus, and I believe that he is the one true Lord, and I also believe that if you look at every other major world religion, if you look at every single idea that's out in the world, I believe that there is something inside of it. I believe that there's something inside of it that I want to say is true, but it's meant for a purpose, and that there's something that tries to grasp at you. And I think the reason why, and we'll get into this, is for a number of reasons. And so I believe that you can find the truth in science, you can find the truth in the Bible, and I believe both coincide with each other. And I believe that deep inside of the Bible is written the very foundations for who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to behave. And I can see that written even in the psychology textbooks. So I'm really, really excited to talk today. Thank you guys for allowing me here. And I'm excited. So thank you guys.
So now we're going to go into the first category, and the first category is origins of the universe and ultimate reality. Look, the first question we have is, what best explains the origin of the universe, a personal creator, the emergent natural process, or something entirely different? So let me read that once more, and then Jason, you'll be starting us off. What best explains the origin of the universe, a personal creator, emergent natural process, or something entirely different? The stage is yours, Jason.
Wow. I think it's most likely something entirely different. A personal creator would indicate that the source is one singular source as opposed to some giant energetic source that is not the word personal means is not couldn't really apply to that. A natural occurrence, nature is very random and chaotic in many ways, and also extremely organized. So I don't think it's quite natural, especially the way I think it's supernatural, which indicates that this supernatural comes from beyond in some sense. But I don't know if it's actually personal or if it's natural. It's something other. And I think in your description of Rupert Sheldrake, that's kind of where I lie. It's some kind of energetic field that is supernatural, and it may be created from a group or of entities or one entity or some superpower or multiple superpowers. But the origin of creation is not as we're told. That is one thing I am certain of. It is not as it's written in literal terms in the Bible. That scientifically does not hold up. It's not as we're told in scientific textbooks in terms of creation. That theory also doesn't pass the scientific, standard of testing evidence-based, theories that can be very easily disproven. So because these things don't hold up to scientific rigor, I'm certain that it is other. And I am most comfortable, and most people are uncomfortable with not knowing. And everybody wants to know.
Okay, your time is up. Now, Jono, you can feel free to give your response to that question or also respond to what Jason said.
Yeah, so as a Christian, I obviously believe there's an element of a personal creator, right? I think it's really important that we establish, I think it's kind of alluded to in what Jason was saying too, that it's an unfalsifiable topic, which means that there's not any evidence that we'd be able to present that would definitively prove or disprove the existence of God or the existence of morphic resonance theory, right? We're really talking about what is the most cohesive explanation for the things that are around us, right? And so the argument that it's a personal thing, the reason why this is such a compelling argument to me is it all comes down to this idea of identity. What separates man from humanity, or what separates man from AI? Why do we, when we are oppressed, hold on to the things that are being trying to take away from us? Identity politics, race politics, all of these things are ultimately about who we are as people, right? That idea of having a source, while it may seem like it's a limiting thing in saying that God is smaller than what he is, really that the concept is that we were created in an image, right? That we share likeness with God, and that we see that pattern throughout nature and throughout science. So when we see these patterns that even the people that were studying and perpetuating morphic resonance theory were seeing, that these patterns of learning and these patterns of growth are ultimately signs of identity and ultimately tie us back to Imago Dei, the fact that we were created in God's image. And so that's the reason why I strongly believe that it is a personal relationship, that a personal creator that created all that we see today. And even the explanations that suggest like simulation theory, or that these are just computer simulations, even agree with this.
Okay, Cody, you're up next. Let me start the timer.
Woo, that's awesome, man. So you guys are so cool. I love you guys. So like, again, I'm just Cody, right? So I'm just going to spitball here. I got some real crazy ideas. So I've been studying a little bit of Jung lately, a little bit of the collective unconscious. And what's really fascinating to me is I believe Rupert Sheldrake got his idea from him. The collective memory, the collective unconscious. And what's so fascinating to me is what he was looking at is societally, there were commonalities amongst all peoples. You know, you've got the flood story in Hawaii and the flood story with the Native Americans, all separated from cultures, completely isolated from each other. And what's really fascinating is if you look at the origins for where Jung got his idea of collective unconscious, he actually states in his autobiography that the collective unconscious and the archetypes came from two beings that visited him during his walk in a garden one day. And both of those two beings spoke to him, and they told him that all of the things in the world were based off of similar archetypes with each other. And so when you find, hero archetypes and warrior archetypes, these were all derivative of two beings that visited him during the day. And he called these two beings a vision or a dream that he had. But he believes they're real, and he believes that they were really a god who visited him, is what he said. It was a god, and whichever the other one is, that's a good question. But I think it's fascinating, and I think it helps to understand, like, what is the source for Rupert Sheldrake's idea, and what is the source for collective unconscious and collective memory. It makes me think. So I'm really excited. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I'm just going to pause at that.
Okay, so now we're going to go into Dion's exchange, and we're going to go into an open exchange, which is 2 minutes after that.
I believe that both things can be truth at the same time. I believe God is spirit. He is larger than all of us combined. He created all of it for his pleasure. That's what I believed all my life. I have studied, different sorts of psychology and things along those lines as well, so I can deal with people. And first of all, man innately needs a superior being. I know you don't. And what I mean by that is we need to have our understanding that there's something bigger than us. It makes us feel like, that we're grounded and we have a basis to go by. But being that there's a spirit, he can be all at once. And a lot of people don't. The Bible even tells us we have to study him in spirit and in truth. And God is the spirit, and we have to revel him as such. We have to understand him as such. Mankind's different viewpoints all come through their understanding of what the word says or what they believe to be. Natural man has always looked, that's why Egypt had all their gods, and that's why the Romans had all their gods. They're always looking for a way to understand their life and what they're doing and what they're going and where they're going. And for people that, as a Christian, I truly believe that God is a personal thing. I believe your relationship with God is personal. How you understand him is how you've been taught or how you've been raised, and or what you've read and studied. I believe there's more evidence for a personal God than there is for two things in the middle of space going together, clanging, and then all of a sudden we've got creation. I believe that it was planned. It was formatted by a higher being. And, and maybe that's just because it makes me...
Okay, Dion, your time is up, Dion. Your time is up, Dion. So now we're going to go into a 2-minute open exchange on the topic of origin and universe. We're going to start off with Jono, and everyone can chime in and feel free to ask each other anything you want. And then you guys can have an open forum dialogue on the topic of origin and the universe.
Okay, and Jason, I'd like to ask you a personal question. What's your thought on abortion? I mean, how do you feel about it? When do you think life begins?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, the life is the egg. The egg actually has a pattern, a development, a movement, and a process that it goes through to put itself in line at a certain point. So there's some kind of intelligence going on there. And obviously bacteria and smaller life forms that we can actually observe do all kinds of things. And most of those go along with the same pattern. They get created at some point in some spark. So I think there's a spark probably, and then there's another spark, a bigger spark when the sperm meets the egg. But my grandmother went to that concert, and that music, those vibrations, that frequency was bouncing into that egg and could have killed that egg, but it didn't, and the egg survived. So
okay, the time is up.
I'm part of it.
The time is up. So now we're going to go into the next topic, and for the open to bloom, I'll leave it open for 2 minutes, just like that. That was a perfect example. So the second question is based on the laws in nature, design or emergent. And the question is, are the laws in nature intentional design or emergent field behavior? And we're going to start with you, Jono. And I'm gonna let me get this going. Hold on the timer. 2 minutes. Bam. There we go.
I think the best explanation for what we see today is that it all started from a singular voice, right? If you're familiar with cymatics, it's like this concept that frequencies shape the sand into particular shapes, and we can see these beautiful designs. And it's kind of similar to the way that we diagram and see how the universe is expanding, right? As I've been working more in the AI space, it's been really interesting to see the kind of the thing that we've made in man's image, right? The creation that mirrors what we are as humans, and how that mirrors how we were created in that same image. Really what we see today, the things that would seem like emerging patterns and emerging patterns would be kind of the same thing as if you had a bunch of different AI that could trigger each other and talk to each other. And when you start talking to one, they create more and they create more and they create more, right? It's this compounding large game of telephone that continues to communicate what the universe is. That's why when we talk about how everything in the universe is frequency, we know, like, the biblical understanding of that is because we know that it was created from God's voice, right? And we see the micro examples of that with like cymatics, where we see how frequency forms things into matter, right? I don't think Jason and us are disagreeing on the nature of the fact that we believe that there is some sort of order, right? For there to be pattern, there has to be contrast with chaos, right? But the question is, where does that order come from, and does it have a source? And again, I still think that the best explanation is a singular personal voice, and we see it even in the physics of matter forming together into beauty because the frequency matched what the pattern was supposed to be. So that's my explanation for why these emerging patterns that we see are actually just originating from a singular voice.
Okay, Jason, the stage is yours. Feel free to answer that question and also respond to anything that Jono might have said that you disagreed with or agreed with.
Yeah, I actually agree with a lot of that the sound creates the patterns, and in our known frequency range, we can watch these patterns be created in water, in sand particles, and they kind of look sometimes like a torus, like the Earth's field, and it never looks like kind of a human. I think there's a certain ways that they have drawn it that can actually show the form of a human, but in that frequency range, there's a lot of things that are not appearing. It just looks like spirograph, really cool stuff. But not the imbalance of nature, not just, we've got one organ on one side and a different organ on the other side. We're not as symmetrical as those frequencies are. So there's probably another field that we have not discovered that is not in this regular sound and light field, that is maybe a spiritual field, and we haven't learned how to produce that with computers yet, with our devices. But that field, or that alternate field, also exists in the ether. All of this sound and light energy has to move through a medium, and that medium is the ether. How that ether was put there, we don't know. But I think that it, in combination with another field yet to be discovered, which maybe not yet to be discovered, but yet to be articulated, other than the spiritual field, is in combination with the sound and light frequencies, creates and helps things develop to what they are in their asymmetrical way.
Your time is up. So now we're going to go into Cody, and feel free to respond to anything anyone said previously while still answering that question. And just so you know, disagreement is welcomed. Just do it in a loving way.
Man, that was cool, man. I love it. That was so cool. Like, I love it. It's fascinating to me, like, I love to hear it. it makes me think too, like there's so many connections, like how is it all made? Well, how does it all fit together? And, I love thinking about the physical aspect of it. I'm not an expert on the physical aspect of it, but I have thought a lot about the psychological aspect of it. I've thought a lot about whether or not the fields themselves are what constructs it, if it's spiritual, if it's physically somehow connected. I'm sure that's true. What I do see, what's really fascinating in the same realm and the same idea, Rupert Sheldrake's idea is the collective memory, so that all these societies across the earth have understandings based upon this field, right? If this field being God, or if it's spiritual, right? Which is what I believe. However, there's also other beings that I believe are in the spiritual too. And those spiritual beings were in connection with this God that I believe exists. And these spiritual beings know about this information and they communicate it to people across the earth. And so I think this helps account for why some people can understand things and why they have such relevant connections. I think it's both spiritual, psychological, and I think that's exactly what Carl Jung actually encountered, right? Because you have to question, right? If all the gods throughout the earth are saying similar things, right? They talk about certain things, right? Then, what are they? What is these beings that spoke to Carl Jung, or was it a hallucination? And so I like to think about stuff like that. So I'll just pause at that for a second.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Dion's answer, and then after that, we're going to go into another 2-minute open debate. An open topic debate where everyone can talk like we did before.
Okay. Once again, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this. This is where faith comes in. We have to have faith. Where all things will not be known. Even in science knows they don't know it all. But a human nature is, I want to know it. But sometimes we have to just believe because of prior experiences. I've always told my children that perception is reality. How you perceive something is your reality. So people want to understand and perceive things, and sometimes we just have to perceive it or accept it on a faith-based. I truly believe that there is one creator. I believe man was created in his image. I think he made it for his pleasure. He didn't need us, but therefore he did it to make, for his own pleasure to create a being in his image. Now, through time, I believe that what Jason said was true too. I believe that past elements and past history is interjected in us and through us, and we understand the past. That's why it's so important for us to study history. If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, and we see man continually do it. Now, when we talk about faith, and that's what I'm talking about, is an understanding that there's a being greater than I am, and that I have studied and read and learned of through the Bible, which is the book I believe in. And now I'm one of those that believe that it has the answers. And I'm not going to apologize for that. That's just the way I was raised and what I believe. But we also understand that God gave man free will. He gave us the ability to go out and do what we choose. And this happened from the beginning of time. He did, God could. I'm one of those that believe God could make us.
Your time is up, Dion. So now we're going to go into an open forum debate like we did last time, where you can feel free to ask any questions you want. Just make sure you keep it on the topic of the laws of nature. And we're going to start the timer now.
I want to have a little comment about history and how much we can identify in our own current reality historical things being completely manipulated and changed that we just saw happen last week, and now the story is totally different. And multiply this by 1,000 or 2,000 years of history, what we know about the many versions of the Bible and the many versions of many texts that were consolidated and isolated in who could ever even print those things, write those things, or orally transfer those things. So to be very skeptical about history as it has been told to us, and the Bible being one of the first historical documents. We know that it has been heavily manipulated. So the concepts are incredible, but the relevance of the specific information to learn from has to be understood.
With the remainder of time, could you respond to that, Jono?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would say to that is one of the reasons why we know that it's been manipulated over the years and over the decades is because we have the ledger, basically, of the different changes or the different translations, which is something that you can't say for a lot of other historical documents, right? And so there is while I agree that there has been, even just from within the church, as far as like who dominated the church history and who has an agenda to tell it a certain way, that's absolutely true. But I don't think that's a fair criticism of the text necessarily, given that compared to almost any other historical text, we actually have the ledger of changes and the ledger of translations. But I do understand the general point.
Okay, so we're out of time for this first section. Now we're going to go into category 2, the human existence, consciousness, and the nature of God. The first question is consciousness a soul or an emergent morphic field? So is conscience a soul or an emergent morphic field? We're going to start with Cody this time since he hasn't started yet.
I'll be darned, man. It got me going on this one. Well, okay, so that's a great question. So whether it's an emergent field that, created it, that like helped to form it, I think there's a lot of influences there for sure. I think that there's obviously something that helped to, bring us about. And I think that if we took a look at, what really did, we would find those patterns within the communication that it wanted to communicate, right? So if God was real, and they really did want to communicate what they wanted us to be or how they wanted us to be, we would find that, right? And I think we do. I think, all religions in the world would more or less claim that, certain ones would say they speak indirectly. Ours speaks directly. And so I think that the reason why we have consciousness, whatever that really means, however that really looks, it's for a reason. We're here to accomplish a purpose. We're here to hopefully bridge the gap between people's suffering. I think suffering is a really big part of it, and how we actually deal with that. And I think each idea, each religion has to answer that somehow. Why do people suffer? And I believe ours has that answer. And I believe that if you look closely enough, the Bible will actually tell you why and how to deal with it. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's what I'm spitballing with.
Awesome. So now we're going to have Jono take the stage and go next.
I think it's probably a good place to start of just kind of asking the question of what is consciousness, right? Because I'm not going to claim to just like, I think that this explanation explains what consciousness is. If I don't think that really anyone can give a great definition of what it is in the first place. Like, we talk about, well, we're different from animals, but we don't actually have a way to measure exactly how that is. We kind of have to make up measures to figure out how we're different than animals. I think any intellectually honest Christian would not be able to say we're not cells a part of a larger organism called the earth, right? Or that our cells are not conscious. We don't know, and scripture doesn't really say, right? But when we do talk about consciousness, because there is this connotation or this idea, it's not fully technical, but there's this idea that we talk about in society called consciousness. What are we actually talking about? And I'm going to go back to this idea of identity, that what we're talking about are the traits of imago Dei, to be made in the image of God. That's what separates us from an animal, and that's what separates us from a plant. That's the shape, kind of what Jason was saying before, that there's these perfect mathematical representations of the shapes, right? But then there's clearly something else that creates the shape of the human, the things that are asymmetrical, the things that aren't actually mathematically perfect in our perception, at least. And these are the things that I think go back to being created with intention, purpose, and identity, right? And so when we talk about what this idea of consciousness is. Ultimately, I think we're asking is who and what is made in God's image and what is not made in God's image. What shares the likeness of a creator, an intelligent creator, and what is just derivative of that. And so that's my answer, is that consciousness, I mean, like, whatever you want to call it, what we're talking about ultimately is being in relation to God.
Okay, so now we're going to have Jason take the stage and respond to anything he wants to respond to while also still answering that question.
Yeah, consciousness has to be identified, but I experienced the dogs being conscious. I'm conscious in a different way. I guess that consciousness is, if you want to give it a definition, is kind of like the awareness of itself to some degree, or if you want to make us separate consciousness than animals or plants. But they have their own awareness in other ways, which I think is very important. How Jonathan said that, you know, we only can measure it in certain ways. If we could get back to the soul measurement, if we have a soul measuring device, as opposed to just an energy measuring device, and then maybe we are all soul measuring devices. When we come up to a tree, you don't just feel the field of the tree, but you can also kind of have the awe and wonder of the tree, and its history can be given to you. You can feel its energy and its connectedness under the ground, because it has a way of communicating, and it has a consciousness to some degree. So, you know, we are maybe the soul measuring devices, and perceiving in life forms. We can perceive this consciousness, or we can impose it because of some intellectual idea that this bug is moving around. Look at all these ants. Oh my God, I can't believe this massive thing that they're building right here. And then they zoom into that thing, and it's more complex than a modern day skyscraper. So they certainly have something going on that's conscious inside.
Okay, your time is up. So now we're going to have Dion respond, and then we're going to go into the open exchange again.
Okay. As far as consciousness is, I think it's more so of being self-aware. I have dogs. I don't think they're very much self-aware. I believe that God breathed life into man. We've created in his image. And as far as pertaining to our self-awareness, it starts at that understanding that there is something greater than us. Dogs do understand those things greater than us and greater than them. But we need to understand in this aspect, though, that our consciousness makes us be aware of our inabilities and our traits and things that we need to change. The worst we can do is not grow and not become better people. I mean, you don't want to stay where you started. You want to be a better person. That's consciousness. We're self-aware that we have frailties, that we do need to change. I know for a fact that most animals, you have to make them understand they need to change. And some people are that way too. I'm not saying that they're not, but we are self-aware. We understand that there is, as part of my spirituality is understanding there's a power greater than me that has created order, created regulation, created understanding, created ordinances, and I can study them. And if I choose to do so, there again, I talk about free will. A lot of people don't agree with that. A lot of people think it's predestined. All these things are predestined. I think God made us in his image and then said, hey, go be the best you can be, but come back to me. And if you have problems or questions, and help each other. And that's part of it. It's the free will. It's a part of our consciousness that we know we need to do better or be better than we are. And like I said, that's part of my theory on what God has done for us.
Thank you, Dion. So now we're going to go into the open exchange, and it seems like your wheels are turning, Cody. So we're going to have you start this off, and anybody is able to interject and ask anything they want.
Yeah, that's so cool. I got really excited. Jason started talking about some really cool stuff that gets me really excited. I think it's so cool. And I actually think it's true, too, which is interesting. I actually do think that animals, right? So you talked about like you can feel it, right? You feel it around them, right? Like you can feel the history. Like I really think there's something to that actually. What I think is fascinating is I think it surrounds all kinds of things, right? It's just this very interesting idea, and I think there's a reason for it. There's so much I could talk about. But one instance that I think is really cool and really helpful, there's a passage in Ezekiel. We actually talked about this last time we talked too. It was talking about the forms of the angels, right? The angels had the human face and the animal faces, right? And I think that those faces are actually God saying that these are incarnations of the angels, these different types of animals that he's placed on the earth, which is interesting. However that looks, how much that is, that I can't tell you.
Okay, give Jason some time to respond.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I was going to say that it might actually be the opposite to some degree, as what Tom said. We are the only ones that have the freedom to mess everything up. Everybody else, all these other beings, they all got it. They don't have any, they're not messing anything up. The trees do what they're supposed to do. The ants do what they're supposed to do. Everybody else eats what they're supposed to do. They don't have all of these choices to destroy and to upset the balance. We're the only ones that have a lack of consciousness in this particular thing. We also can make improvements, and that's because we're messing things up, but we're not improving the trees. We're not improving the ants. We're only proving our own fallibility.
See, Jason, that's what makes me believe in a creator, though.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I gotta be strict on this one. We're out of time. Sorry, Dion. I wish you could respond. I just gotta be strict on the time limits to make it fair for everybody. Okay. So now we're gonna go into the next question before we go into section 3. But the next question is, how would God create humans, and does that conflict with emergent field explanations? And we're gonna start with you, Jason.
Yeah, I think this goes a little bit to what I just said, that, you know, it's slightly in conflict with with everything else that's been created. We're like the foreigner here. Maybe God came in and made this perfect ecosystem that has all of its parts working, and we're the outlier.
We are.
Emerging fields, they seem to actually be what the rest of nature is, and we definitely are emerging, and we definitely are responding to the fields, but I think the fields already, they tell the dogs what to eat and what not to eat. They tell the trees how to communicate, but then what they tell us, we don't necessarily listen to. So yeah, we may be the outlier, as I can say.
Awesome. So now we're going to have Jono go next, since he didn't use his full 2 minutes. So there we go, Jono, your turn.
And the question is just kind of, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, so let me stop your timer. The question is, how would God create humans, and does that conflict with the emergent field explanations? So how would you explain the best way that God would create humans?
Yeah, I think that, again, it all goes back to the central concept that I've kind of hinged on, of identity, right? That God created man with identity. That really in my view, that the Christian explanation subsumes what the Morphic Resonance theory is trying to arrive at. That there is a higher power, that there is design, that these things emerge from something, right? So I don't think that they have to be in conflict, though I do think that the people that generally believe on either side of this camp tend to have disagreements and differings as far as the explanations. But really, on an abstract level, I think that we're trying to arrive at the same conclusion. We're trying to make sense of what these patterns are and what order is in comparison to chaos. And I like that Jason brought up the fact that we do have this unique position in being able to screw everything up, right? And that goes back to what Dion was saying as well, that the narrative of God creating man to have the option to choose him or not choose him is that choice to adhere to the laws of the universe the way that it was perfectly designed, or to stray from that and to do something that's harmful. That's why there are so many different issues in society, that it's not like these big moral issues. It's these issues of how are we designed, what's good for us, what's good for the environment, what's good for society, right? These questions ultimately have to come from some source of morality other than just survival, right? So that, again, goes back to this idea of identity, that if morphic resonance theory submits to the idea that where these emerging patterns come from ultimately is a designer and identity, then yeah, I think that they can work together and explain how we see the progression of humanity and the progression of society and that contrast between nature and man.
So now we're going to have Dion go, and he can feel free to respond to anything he wants, and also respond to Jason or Jonathan.
Well, studying this emerging field and all that, if it's actual the way they're saying it is, then why is a horse still just a horse? Why haven't they learned from the past to run from man? Why haven't they learned and grown and become, different species than they are? Man, if we're saying that man does this because we were created this way, then we had to believe that God created man. We had to, yes, we are not the same man that was in the Garden of Eden, but God created the Garden of Eden, made it perfect for man. Like Jason said, man messed it up. We got kicked out because we wanted to know more and be gods. So that's what it says, basically says in the creation image of God creating man, put him in the Garden of Eden, said, tend this garden. You don't have to work. You don't have to do anything. I'll take care of you. Man says, well, I want to be God. He partakes of the tree of knowledge. And then all these things happen from there. And we've been trying to overcome that initial sin ever since the beginning. I truly believe God gave us dominion, over animals. That doesn't mean we have the right to mistreat them or anything else, but we are smarter than some people. And we do use them to our betterment and sometimes to their betterment. But that is part of having dominion over them. And we are continually growing, or should be. Like I said from the start, we need to be a better person today than we were yesterday. And I believe that we're led and directed by the Bible and by our own conscience, our own understanding of the Bible. And that's why I think it's important for us to understand that we do not have to follow the Bible. If this was a true God like they professed, then he would say, you're going to do it the way I said to. But man,
okay, you're out of time. You're out of time, Dion. You're out of time. Sorry, I got to be strict on the time because we're running out of time. So now we're going to have Cody respond, and then we're going to go into the open dialogue, and then after that we're going to go into category 3.
Okay, so I got something really cool. Okay, so we're going to call it a little bit of, we want to call it like circumstantial or indirect evidence that I think of human behavior, and how we were made, human behavior being implanted within a text. Okay, so I think that when you look at the Bible, what you actually find is that the concepts that are foundational to psychology, right? You can actually look in the textbooks and find parallels between the textbooks in psychology and the Bible, and it lines up exactly. So when it talks about dealing with trauma, it's inside of it, right? Like how we can actually approach anxiety. That's an easy one. Jesus talks about that. He talks about cast your cares upon him. There's, don't be anxious about this. Don't think about the things of today, right? Or don't think about the things of tomorrow, for the things of tomorrow will think about the things of themselves, right? There are passages throughout the entire text that actually help to deal with it. It's helped me in my life. I'll speak personally. So I've had to deal with a lot of loneliness and isolation, right? And we're talking about a God who came down and says, you know what? Even though your father treated you like a slave, even though he treated you like you were a servant, he says, the God of the universe says, I no longer treat you that way, but I call you friend. I call you friend. That's foundational to who we are, a friend, right? What other God says that? No other God says that on the face of the planet. None, period. And it answers it entirely. I think that's just how I feel. because like I feel changed, I feel healed, I'm not the same person anymore. And he changed me from the inside out to make it to where I don't have to feel trauma, I don't have to hurt, and I can love people the way he intended me to love. And so like I just how I feel. That's what I see in scripture, and so it gets me really excited.
So now your time is up. We're going to go into the open dialogue, and we're going to have Jason start this one off. Oh, you're muted, Jason. You're muted.
Yeah, what comes to mind is assimilating all of these various perspectives is that the Bible is this handbook. Well, basically, you guys are saying, he says this, it's right here, it's all in there, it's all in there, it's all in there. So you've got a incredibly complex field of morphic resonance and all these things structured, and then you've got man who's messing everything up. And, supposedly in a historical context before the written word, we needed to give him a handbook. So he created this simplified, very basic handbook for the one, organism on this planet that wasn't doing good.
To make this open dialogue fair, I want Jono to respond.
Just let me frame it really quick.
You can finish.
Intelligent being helping out the idiots over here with the Bible.
I don't disagree with that on some level. I do think it helps the idiot. I think that is part of it. I think the reason why I would push back a little bit on just the nature in which you're talking about scriptures, I would argue that scripture is the monomyth. That when we talk about the hero's journey, or even where I think that Carl Jung got wrong in a lot of places, is that he deviated from the psychology that's very clearly in scripture. And so if you look at every single situation that you've ever gone in your life, that situation and the psychology of it will find itself in scripture, not just with human interactions, but in the organization of the entire world. So that's why I say that it is the monomyth, and that there is no narrative that exists in the world that is not first described in scripture. And
okay, we are out of time now. We're going to go into the next section, which is category 3, evidence, revelation, and competing worldviews. The first question is, which worldview produces a better scientific or predictive success? Which worldview produces a better scientific or predictive success? We're going to start with Cody this time.
Oh my gosh, you started with me. Oh, wow. Okay. That's a great question. I've heard a lot about this actually. I've heard a lot from different people. And predictive success. Okay. So in order to be predictive, you've got to have some kind of foundation. You got to have some place to start. And I think the places where science and the Bible coalesce, they do work together very well. They actually do align rightly. So where the Bible wants to speak on certain issues, it does. And where it doesn't, I'm sure there may be some places that if they look, they could find it, right? But like quantum realm, people thinking about the quantum realm, like how, I don't know about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool ideas about, how the fields work together and form things. I'm sure God could easily work that way. I don't doubt that in the slightest. How he does it is another matter. What he does with it, I think is also another matter. But predictive success. Well, I know that there are things in the Bible that are very clearly scientific. You've got Ecclesiastes that talks about the currents of the wind, right? Astrophysics, right? You talk about Ezekiel, right? How did Ezekiel know what the color spectrum was? How did he know the rainbow outside of God's glory is the light, right? So you have again in John, it talks about God is light, and then in Revelation, it says that Jesus' light will shine throughout the entire world. So you've got astrophysics inside of the Bible. I'm just going to posit that, and I'll leave off there.
Okay, the time is up. So now it's Jono's stage. The stage is yours, Jono.
As far as I guess what produces the predictable results, or what allows for scientific development and stuff, I don't really like what I started off with. These are both unfalsifiable concepts that ultimately we're trying to argue about something that there's no evidence that could actually prove or disprove. We're trying to explain something that's outside of our dimension. But I will point to logic being absolute truth in form, even if it doesn't produce in conclusion. What I mean by that is the logical foundation that we exist in. The fact that we know predictably that 1 + 1 = 2 is the foundation of absolute truth in form. That we understand that there is something out there that allows us to measure true and false, that allows us to measure chaos versus order, and that truth or that absolute form is the belief that there's something greater than this dimension that designed all of this, right? Or that it's the source of all of this. When we think about how we understand dimensions, how we understand even time, the fact that we exist in time, that if we were created, that means that there would be some being that exists outside of the construct of time. That's something that's hard for us to be able to even conceptualize, but it means it would be like if 1 + 1 = 2 was just one thing, right? That the idea that 1 + 1 = 2 is an expression of story, that it is the expression of time and division, that if there was a truth outside of what we experience, it would look like 1 = 1. I am that I am. That is what Jesus is saying when he says, I am that I am. It is a perfect truism. He is saying there is no other source of logic. I am the source. So that's why I believe that it's the only basis for predictable science.
Okay, Jason, the stage is yours. Have at it. We're excited to hear what you got to say.
Wow. I have often said that the most, the greatest evidence for God is math. And this is incredibly exemplified by what Jonathan just said, because it is the predictable algorithm that you can get every single time, and that is science, obviously. You're not falsifying the claim that 1 + 1 = 2. It always equals 2. So therefore, it actually is. And the Mandelbrot is another algorithm that emerges in these random ways. And it occurred to me, though, I was saying that it's not symmetrical, but it actually, the Mandelbrot is also not symmetrical and symmetrical at the same time. So therein lies the human predictability of the way that we go together in these random ways according to math. So we are sort of, but who made that math, of course, is what we're trying to figure out. And that math had to be created by some intelligent being that wanted predictability and unpredictability in the randomness of at the same time. It's a fascinating thing. They are one and the same. There's not one or the other. They are both predictable and unpredictable at the same time. Math is God. God is math.
Awesome. So now we're going to go into Thomas's answer, and then we're going to go into the open dialogue. Then we'll have one more question after this, and then we'll do our closing statements.
Okay, as far as I think there's a duality in it that you were talking about, Jason, that yes, God is God and he did create all this. I truly believe, not just in my own understanding of things, that there has to be structure and form, and there had to be, if not, I believe that, it doesn't hold water, that it just all happened. And what I mean by that is it was just two objects in the middle of space hitting together, creating the perfect atmosphere, the perfect world. I believe it has a architect, which is God. And that's, there again, it goes back to what you said about math. 1 + 1 is always 2. Man may try to make it 1.685, whatever they want to do with it. But if you got 2 apples, there's always 2 apples. If you got, that's our understanding of it. And I believe that, like John said, it's biblically correct and understandably correct through the Bible. Yes, there are, one thing I like about science is that it does prove a lot of the Bible. By when you study the Bible and understand these things that happen, and like Cody was talking about astrophysics and the light and all these things, we know these things to be true. And we understand those with our understanding. And I think that understanding came from a higher being because he allowed us to understand it. But there again, he wanted to be just. And to be a just God, he has to give us the opportunity to mess up. If we did exactly what he wanted to all the time, there would be no reason for him to judge us or have any of these things that's going to happen or we see happen to us. I don't believe that some of this stuff is accident. I think sometimes these things happen for a reason. And I believe
Okay, your time is up. Your time is up. Your time is up. Your time is up. You got to stop talking. So now we're going to go into the open dialogue for 2 minutes, and feel free to just anybody ask questions to anybody they want to. The time is going now. You're muted, Cody.
Oh, dude, I know, man. We're talking about math, Math is a hard subject, man, but it's cool, Like, I do see it. And I saw this I'm not going to take up too much time, but I saw this really cool video the other day. This guy was talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he found that to answer to one of his, the theories of the superstring theories, is he found at the bottom of it, the answer, one of them was the bits of code, zeros and ones, 01001. It was a specific type of code. And that was so fascinating to me, it's like at the very foundation of the entire world. If we believe like if this really does answer, if superstring theory really is an answer for it, which I think it could be, if he found bits of code on the bottom of it, I don't know, So anyways, I thought that was really cool, Math is cool, man,
Did you have a response to that, Jason?
Yeah, that the string theory is very cool. It's a very interesting idea. I think besides that, we figured out math. I mean, it doesn't exist until we conceived of it, but it's sort of a gateway to this perfect code that creates all of these things. And the math is nowhere in the natural world until we put it there. The ants don't have math when they're building their incredible structures under the ground. The buffalo don't have math as they're herding, but they all have the fields as well.
Are the fields not derivative of some kind of math, right? If math is foundational to the world, do the fields themselves not have math involved in it? I would just asking that, like the fields, the resonance.
Sorry, our time is up. We're gonna go into the next question now. And you guys can feel free to email each other if you want to talk after this. But the last and final question before we go into our closing statements will be based on miracles, revelation, and the gematria theory. So how should we evaluate scripture, miracles, and numerical patterns as evidence? Or something like completely different, maybe like how can you evaluate miracles if you're not a Christian? Or how can you say that numerical things do happen that are patterns as evidence to a creator or to something other than just us? The stage is yours, Jason. You're going to start this.
Yeah, I think in these fields exist other entities that are sort of at play, and you can call it God or gods. Maybe there was a God that created the main earth, and then another God came and said, hey, I want to put some people on there. And he had to do this thing. And then all the other entities that exist in these fields underneath maybe one higher God that created the fields and the ether. But there has to be other entities involved. There's too many miracles happening. There's too many coincidences. There's too many societies and groups of people all organizing in sync with each other at various times and various locations in the world. When they didn't have communication devices, they would only be able to understand through fields. And in those fields, other entities were creating the miracle pyramids that were made somehow without any power tools thousands of years ago, in multiple locations on the planet. And they're also orchestrating our greatest disasters and our pandemics and our global, control grid. This is not through text messages from our elite government controllers. These are entities probably existing and using the fields to manipulate these many groups of people who believe they're doing something right, but are actually responding to the fields. I was just like, how are they orchestrating these global wars and takeovers? Facebook Messenger? Are they in some kind of like private net? Are they on Discord organizing these pandemics? No, they're through the collective unconscious, controlled by other entities that are also responsible for those miracles. And
Okay, your time is up. Your time is up. Okay, Jono, the stage is yours. You got to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what Jason said fits in with the biblical understanding of with the spiritual realm, and that we live in a space where there are good and evil spirits, that there are things that are contributing and also antagonizing our daily life and the world around us. That's actually one thing, that very last thing you said, I very much resonate with, because I'll talk to people a lot about what's going on in politics right now, and they'll jump immediately to, like, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. And my point is always, you don't have to believe in human conspiracy to believe that evil conspires against good. And so if evil is a force, right, then we don't have to be pointing at a certain evidence to say, oh, we know it's specifically these guys, or we know it's specifically these people. We know that there is evil, that there is entropy, that there is decay, and that these things are spiritual and that they impact our daily life. So on the flip side, we also have miracles, right? That there are things that are happening that just don't make sense in our understanding of the world. What things, whether or not something being able to be described through physics or something invalidates it being a miracle, it's kind of a different question. But I think we all agree that there's something else going on that's beyond what we can experience and measure in an empirical way, that there are things that are too much coincidence, and I would argue narrative, story, and communication happening to us daily. And really the question becomes then, what is being communicated? Why are there emergent thoughts? What are the forces and what are the motives behind one sort of emergent thought versus another? And can we differentiate these two things? And can we actually find a source of them? Again, I believe that the scripture makes it very clear that we are fighting in a war that is a spiritual war. And that means that to enact justice or to live in justice is to live to the betterment of the people and the world around us.
Okay, your time is up, Jono. Now we're going to get Cody to respond. Just give me 1 second. I got to adjust the timer. All right, Cody, the stage is yours.
Awesome, man. Yeah. I think about this, right? So, let's just take a hypothetical and say that the other gods throughout the world, Vishnu and let's say the Buddha, let's say all these other gods, the Quetzalcoatl, let's say all these other gods throughout all the world really were a part of this field, right? Let's say they were all somehow involved in making it, or if they were all just some kind of collective. Well, you would find coincidences or similar, like something that seems like a coincidence all throughout it, right? Because they'd be communicating the same message, right? And what we do find is that there is one. And it's a serpent. And at the bottom of every other major world religion, there's a serpent inside of it. And I always find it fascinating that this serpent says the same thing. It says to follow me and I'll give you wisdom. I'll give you enlightenment. Well, fascinating, right? Why? Why does that happen? Why does the snake? Because I don't know if you've looked at snakes lately, but if you go watch a snake, they don't really look all that smart. So it couldn't have just derived sociologically. There had to have been something, some kind of entity, something, right? And I think the Bible, they go against whatever the serpent says, right? Serpent says enlightenment. The Bible says that it does say enlightenment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And so I think you have to postulate, okay? So if all the other gods really are this, what are they saying, right? And you have to really kind of decide, is the serpent, right? Is this serpent God, this serpent entity that speaks to people? Are they all a part of the collective? Are they the collective unconscious that Carl Jung was talking about? Is that the entity that spoke to them? Because I think that they all would say that would be true, right? Like the Eastern Hindu religions, Buddhist, all of them, they all kind of combine within this framework that Carl Jung talked about. And I think that's the ultimate decision you have to make. Are they true, or is the Bible true?
Okay, the time is up. Now, Pastor Thomas, can you go? The stage is yours.
Well, yes. As far as there is good and evil, it's inherently natural. God did allow evil to come. Like I said, when he first created the Garden of Eden, everything was perfect. Man wouldn't have to work. He'd have all this food. He gave him a woman to procreate. And therefore, we have to understand that we stepped away from God. God didn't step away from mankind. We left his care and control whenever we decided we wanted to be equal to him. It was inevitably going to happen. God knew that. He gave us, once again, I'm really strong on the free will aspect of our relationship with God. We can choose to accept it. That's where the faith comes in. I believe that we have to have faith to understand these things. As far as biblically, we're not going to know it all, but we do need to understand that there is good, there is evil. They are in conflict with each other. We need to understand that we can't defeat it on our own, that we do have to have help. I believe that mankind is going to go through stages and growth and fall back, just as anything else does. They're talking about the emergent theory. It's just learning. It's taking what we get and our understanding of it. Either we understand it biblically and spiritually, or we understand it naturally. It's our choice to accept which way we want to go with it. There again, religion is usually the problem, not the answer. I believe more in spirituality and relationship with God.
Okay, the time is up, Dion.
Certain religion.
The time is up. Before we go into our closing statements, we're going to have one more open exchange on the topic of miracles, and we're going to start with you, Jason. What do you believe miracles? What do you believe when it comes to miracles?
Yeah, I mean, I think somehow we can align ourselves with this possible miracles through our energy direction. We can put ourselves in flow or put ourselves against flow. And when we're in flow, we can perhaps get in line with some of those other entities that are creating miracles. And when we're against flow, we may be aligned with some of those darker entities that, make us deny the truth, or they get us attached to ideas that are not necessarily true because we're too uncomfortable not knowing.
I'm curious, Jason, would you agree with the idea that as humans we're kind of vessels of something else, or would you say that we're more than that?
I think as humans we are the receiver we're built to receive and have this experience. The radio is playing the music, but the music is not coming from the radio. All of the parts have to be put in there to get the clearest signal. And if we are not respecting ourselves, the radio is not built properly, we're going to get distorted signals. We're not going to get all the channels. And these channels that are being blasted at us, some of them are pretty loud, and you got to try to tune away from them somehow. When you tune away from them, you can get in tune with some of these miracles. And you can also listen to the frequencies of nature and not have to be listening to the frequencies of man.
Well, see, Jason, I go back to one of the first things you said when we first started talking was about supernatural. What we encounter through spirituality and through God is always supernatural. I mean, it's not natural for these things to happen, and that's why we look to them as a divine.
Okay, well, we're out of time. We're out of time for this section. So I really wanted to have a rebuttal round, but we've gone way over. Do you guys have time for a rebuttal round, or should we just go to the closing statements?
I have to go.
Okay. If you have to go, we'll go into the closing statements then. Okay, so we'll go into the closing statements within 2 minutes. Give your closing argument, Dion, on what you believe and why you believe it, and feel free to attack anyone's position in a loving way.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to attack it. That's not the debate. I want, of course, I want my thoughts and my sincere beliefs to come across as being sincere and my truth. I'm not telling you it has to be your truth. There again, that goes back to my basis of my faith and belief and understanding through my 65 years of life that there is something greater than me that created mankind, but then in turn gave mankind the ability and the opportunity to do as we see fit. See, I believe if emergency and all that was, we would understand that you shouldn't smoke. We would understand that you shouldn't do these things. We do understand that anyway, and I believe that coming from those things being known as to be evil, that we need to stay away from. But we still have the ability to do it. And I still think that comes directly from God, and that we have free will as his creation to choose to worship him, to obey him, to live a life better through him. I always say whenever, and this is going to take a quick second, I have family members that are atheists, and they say, how can you believe in this sky pilot or whatever you want to call it? So, well, I'm going to look at it this way. Whenever I pass, if there is a God, I'm going to go to heaven because I lived according to what I was taught and believed to be true. If I'm wrong, all I've lost is a good life and a belief of a system that I know is greater than me and made me, I feel, as a better person. I wanted to do better because of what I believed. If the person that doesn't believe in God is wrong, and there is a God and there is a hell, they're going to pay for it according to what they did. And that's what we can ask. That's a just God. We pay for what we do, not what somebody else does.
Your time is up. The next person to go is Jason. Let me just get the timer started, then we'll be ready to go.
Yeah. The greatest gift you'll ever know is just to love and be loved in return. We can't possibly know things, and that's a good thing, that we don't know. If we knew, we might be like the animals, just doing their thing and building their incredible structures and engaging in this ecosystem in the chaos and harmony that is the natural world without man. Everything else is our creative process, and the imagination is the superpower that we've been given. The distinction between us and the rest of the animal world, the rest of the natural world. And what we can create is everything that is not nature on this earth. This microphone, the math, the glass, the bottles, everything that man is making out of love, out of energy, out of choice, out of will, out of his imagination, building his own world, which is making us, I imagine, to some degree in agreement, like gods ourselves, imagining our creation that we are making, this house that I was able to manifest somehow. And really what we're manifesting physically is only should be a representation of our love, our internal manifestation of our emotion, and how we give to each other these things that we imagine and bring into life so that we can experience the depth of emotion and love for each other through it.
Okay, your time is up now. Jono, give your closing statement and any arguments you have.
Yeah, I just want to share something that I heard from a pastor from San Diego one time, and he was talking about like the history of humanity, where evolution kind of suggests that humanity developed the society from needs, that we needed security, and so we developed society. But what the historical records actually show is that society kind of just emerged at some point, right? And it's the same thing that we see with the baby and how it learns to speak. And this is the explanation that the Christian has of what emergent actually means. That a baby doesn't learn to speak because he needs food and he just cries and cries and cries until he figures it out. He learns to speak because he was first spoken to. And this is the same thing that we see with society, that society learned to form relationship because we were created by a relational God and we were first spoken to. And so really what we're asking today is, what is being spoken to us? What is the message? And I believe that the Bible makes it clear that this message is a love story, that it is a song of love to us to be able to accept the grace of the Father and the Son. I love that Jason said that the greatest gift is to love and be loved, because that's exactly what Scripture says. In John 15:13, it says what this love means. It says that greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. And so what we're asked to do as humans, as created beings, is to respond to the message that we were given from the very foundation of the universe. That even the rocks cry out, holy, 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 because they know who they were created by. They have the pattern, they have the DNA. It is exemplified to the very fabric of the universe. So what we're asked to do is to love because we were first loved. And that's what I believe is this idea of what emergent communication actually is.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Okay, Cody, you're going to close out, and then we're going to have like about 30 seconds of a closing thing, and then we're good to go. But the stage is yours, Cody.
My goodness, I gotta follow in the footsteps of all these giants, man, all these people, and I'm humbled, I've got a real humbled message, I guess, but I agree with y'all, and it's so important nowadays, that we do love each other, and I do love you guys, and I'm so very thankful for you, Jason. I'm so glad you're here, it's a pleasure to meet you, man. And, even though, I don't got all the answers, man, I do genuinely love talking to y'all and listening to you. And so even if my message is just that, I'm okay with that, I think that no matter what direction we take, no matter what the ways we think about it, that really is the answer. It doesn't matter about really anything, as long as you're doing that, man, that's important, because there's a lot of hurt people out there, a lot of people who suffer. And, I think that's Christ's main mission, is to alleviate that suffering, even when you're in the midst of it. I found that Jordan Peterson said one of the most influential phrases in his entire life, and so did Viktor Frankl, actually, a Holocaust survivor. Both of them said that the most influential statement in the entire world is to bear your own cross. And Viktor Frankl was a Jewish man, and I think it's true. I think bearing your cross is essential if we're going to be able to help out other people who may disagree with us, and I think that's the entire world, really, is people have their own ideas, and I want to love them through it anyways, even if that means that they want to hurt me or worse, so God bless you guys. Thank you so much,
Okay, so now we're going to close out this, and I want to thank all of our guests. This was so awesome. Thank you, Jono. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Cody, and thank you, Thomas. I can't speak for everybody, but my goal is I want to be the very best, like no one ever was, like Jason always says, but I also want to be able to win them to Jesus. So in Pokémon, it says gotta catch them all. My goal is to catch everyone to Jesus. So I truly hope with all sincerity, Jason, that you genuinely come to know Jesus, and I will rejoice when that day comes. God bless you all, and if there's anything you want to say before we finish, otherwise we will be done.
Just want to point out,
thank you and love you all.
Here, this is both a Beatles gospel nativity happening in its 16th year, where we tell the nativity story with Beatles gospel arrangements. If you're in LA or know anybody in LA, openfist.org, to celebrate the prophets John and Paul, George and Ringo.
Wow.
Can we get you to sing a little bit of the Pokemon theme?
Gotta catch 'em all. Come to both. December 17th to the 21st. Openfist.org.
God bless you guys. Have a great day. This was amazing. Woo! I'm rejoicing. This was the coolest thing ever. God bless you guys. Anything you want to say, Jono, before I close it?
I think God bless you all. It was really nice to meet you all. It was a pleasure.
God bless you. Have a good one.
The stars are buzzing like a cosmic choir. Patrick's got the mic, sparking truth and fire. Jason's belting high. Cody's got the groove. Jono's dropping wisdom. Thomas makes you move. Is it science or design? A grand plan or just a sign? Faith versus frequency. Where do we belong? Notes of grace debating where the truth is strong. Is it morphic resonance or a holy decree? Faith versus frequency. the key.